So I'm Kisha Davis-Caldwell. I'll be with you throughout the course of the day. I'm currently the Director of Outreach and Engagement at the National Board, and it's taken me the better part of the 18 months that I've been there to really figure out what that means and what my role really is in terms of pushing this movement forward. So I was that National Board certified teacher, certifying in 2009 in the area of early adolescent mathematics, and I was an advanced candidate. Some of you may or may not know what that means. That means I did not get it the first darn time around. Missed it by 3 points. 3 points. But I have to say they got it right. They totally got it right. I was an elementary mathematics teacher who was attempting certification in early adolescent mathematics, grades 11 through 15. So there were some areas where I knew I needed to grow in terms of my instructional expertise, but also in general in terms of just my experience. Some places where I didn't know what I didn't know until I went through the process itself. And it created for me a lens of which to judge my personal understanding. And with that lens, it totally changed how I looked at leadership. See, before I did National Board certification, one thing I knew for sure is I was a good teacher. I was a darn good teacher. Because every year I got the students that everyone else was fearful would not succeed and wouldn't make gains, so those students came to me, and I was glad when they got there. I was glad to be able to show those students and those teachers what they could do, as well as show colleagues who maybe doubted those students who those students really were and what they were capable of. So I had results, proven results, that my students can learn, that I can teach, that we're moving the needle. But I didn't realize that even in my desire to be a better leader, that my teaching expertise was not enough. See, teaching students and leading, very different. So I had an experience through trying to gain some more instructional expertise. I think for me, possibly the worst thing could have been to have achieved the first time around. Because I really would probably still think I knew something that I really didn't know. So now I take a totally different look at what leadership is and what it could be. And this morning, I'm going to challenge you to do the same. So that's a piece of my story. And you have some significant pieces of your story also. And I want you throughout the course of the day to start thinking about not just how you're going to string some experiences along for the next leadership opportunity that comes your way, but how are you really crafting a story and a narrative of what's going on in your teaching career and your relationship with your students, and how are you leveraging that for student growth? Because isn't that really what it's all about? I mean, we think we're pouring into ourselves, but why? So we can be better for our students. So I want you to kind of journey with me and take a look at leadership maybe from a different perspective. I'm a visual person, very much a visual learner. Math doesn't make sense to me if there aren't pictures and visuals and ways for me to make these connections. My husband, he's a high school English teacher. My goodness. It's all about words for him. Except for when I say, so how do you feel about? Then there are no words. You guys know them. So I want to go through some visuals here to help you understand what I mean when I say, let's take a different look at leadership. When you think to yourself right now, how do you see leadership? And where do you see leadership? What might be some of your responses to that? Someone said, where do you see leadership? Where's some places you see leadership? This is the participatory part of it. All the way in the back.
I see leadership in my colleagues when they're sharing ideas and information with each other.
Okay, so in your colleagues. Is that what you were going to say here in the purple?
Well, I was going to say, she said colleagues, I was going to go for the old-fashioned administrators.
Okay. So in your administrators.
On the playground, the kid who controls the playground.
On the playground, in our kids. We definitely see it. Definitely. Any other places?
Well, in the classroom, when the children are allowed to become the teacher.
So in our students, we see leadership in our students. Anybody else? So this is a leadership summit today. And one of the first answers I should have heard was, I see leadership in me. Ask yourself the question, do I really see leadership in myself? And it's not arrogant to say, I see leadership in me. That doesn't mean there isn't room to continue to grow, but if you're going to really have impact, if you're going to truly make a difference, that's one of the places that I want you to look differently at leadership. Don't just see it as this outside piece for someone else or something that you're preparing for. Guess what? You have arrived. You have arrived, plain and simple. When we think about how we see leadership, I heard even in the responses, the kid on the playground, the one who kind of says, well, I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to start picking other kids for my team. I heard someone say, colleagues, when they're sharing their understanding with others. Because it's not enough for us to just pinpoint where we see leadership. We need to be able to pinpoint behaviors that show leadership. So often, leadership has been minimized to just position. To only position. In other words, the very basic level of leadership is that place where people follow because they have to. They follow based on authority. They do what you ask them to do because they don't want to be insubordinate. Not because they really believe or because they really think it's worth doing. But it's really to conform. And there are times to conform. Really there are. I'm looking for them. They're out there. They're out there. They're out there. But then there are times to transform. And that's what true leaders really do. So in thinking about this picture, most of you probably saw a lion. But when you look at things differently, when you look at things from a different perspective, when you turn things upside down, when you shake things up, you say, hell no. there's a different perspective that comes into place. And neither of those perspectives is right or wrong, just different. And the perspective that you have may not be enough to foster change alone. You're going to need someone else's perspective, whether that's a perspective on you, a perspective on how you lead, or a perspective on your method of getting something done. So imagine that prior to this, it was just you trying to solve a problem alone. And now someone comes in with a different perspective, maybe one that you don't have, and it's the combination of the two that's just the right formula for getting the work done well. That's really what it means to look at leadership differently. So at NBPTS, our mission's pretty simple. And I always think it's really important, even in a room of National Board Certified Teachers, to revisit post-certification why you started the whole journey in the first place. The first we talked about already. It's all about our students. What can we do to help them be their very best version of themselves? What do we do to help them push and reinvent themselves, for them to find the leader in them? That's the first thing. But the second thing is, what do we do to preserve and elevate our very own profession? See, if we don't pour into that, it's not going to be around. We will then, in some way, others think we can be replaced by computers, by online textbooks, by virtual members that don't look anything like me. But if we elevate the profession, it totally shows our value and our worth. So take some time to revisit periodically, why did I get in this fight in the first place? Because as you move from certification to certification, group of students to group of students, job to job, city to city, even lifestyle to lifestyle, many of you are at a very different place in your life than you were when you started teaching. It was just you. Living large, living single, just you and your student loans. In a one-bedroom apartment, life was good. You had cheese and crackers if you came home too late. You didn't have to worry about feeding anyone else. Well, now, how you lead and your priorities, they go hand in hand. What you're willing to do, what you're able to do, but also what's most important to you, it shifts a bit, which is why it's important to come back and reground yourself in that age-old question, why? And sometimes that question sounds like, why? Why did I even get into this and go down this road? And then other days, it's like, why? Why, yes, that's me, I'm ready for it. But you've got to do that personal reflection. I mean, you've practiced it. You know what it's like to reflect on your practice. But you've got to reflect in other places too. You know, the traditional trajectory of leadership pretty much falls down one path. First you're the student, then you're the student teacher, then you become the teacher. Hopefully you get good at it. You go on and someone pegs you, they tap you on the shoulder and say, you ever thought about being an assistant principal? I wish you were our vice principal. You say, well, I do have to do, 6 credits. I guess I could just work on this certification, this principal certification, and then you find yourself, oh my goodness, I'm an administrator. why? You go right back to that why. But that trajectory is changing. And when we look at the career ladders in the career continuums, they are looking very different than one path and the one way of doing things. For example, 20 years ago when I started teaching, I really thought, yeah, I like teaching enough, and I think one day maybe I'll want to be a principal. And then I started teaching, really getting into it. Then I was like, maybe never. Absolutely not. But that's only because there were opportunities to still lead in different ways. Many of you may be familiar with National Board's career continuum. That takes us from pre-service teaching to novice teaching. Some teachers, of course, come in as a novice teacher, and they're actually in a residency program, while others dive in, but they still have an induction period. But still, they're novice teachers. And then they move into that professional teacher realm. That place where you kind of know what's going to happen and how to deal with it. And then they really dive deep and become accomplished teachers. Teachers like you. And then there are these leadership trajectories. Well, you probably could look at that in 3 simple buckets. It's kind of that time and space where you're building your practice towards an accomplished level. It's when you actually get board certified, and then it's everything that you do afterwards. Really 3 stages. And don't worry if you don't have this slide. I can make sure Jen and Aaron get it out to you. It's also on our site, but maybe a little buried. I'll be able to help anyone who might be interested in that. I want to focus for just a few more minutes right here at this teacher leader piece. Because the traditional trajectory tells us that school, principal, other admin, we know what that looks like. And that may be the path for many of you. The master teacher, the teacher that shares, I think Nicole said in the back, the teacher that shares and spreads their instructional expertise with someone else, we know what that looks like. But there is the teacher leader that doesn't yet exist, or that doesn't yet exist where you are. That piece, that innovation, that position, that there's a problem, but now we need to create a space for that work to be done. And that may be you. If you are toying with the thought of, maybe I want to be a leader, maybe I don't. Well, I don't know that I want to be an administrator. Oh my goodness, the stuff they have to put up with. Well, I still enjoy teaching, but there's something in addition to my teaching. You're probably in that space where you're trying to look differently and figure out what that teacher leader piece is going to be. So here's the task. You can't figure out where you fit until you figure out what your purpose is around a problem. What gets you pissed off? What keeps you up at night? What thing do you feel like, if only they would let me? In other words, what would you say if you weren't afraid? What would you say if you weren't afraid? Don't say it now. Be a little afraid. But that's probably the place where your leadership passion resides. And you've got to identify that in order to figure out how do you address it. Okay? So, now I was looking for quotes. I was putting my little visual thing together, and I came across this. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Agreed? I disagree. But I put it in anyway. I think if we change the way we look at things, but we put no action behind it, things stay exactly the same. And actually, we begin to look at them with even more of a doomful eye. We become disgruntled. I think it's more of, if you change the way you look at things, and you change the behavior towards them, then things will change. See, there's a piece here that's theory, but this quote has no action yet. Sometimes the catalyst, though, for that action is to take a different perspective. So changing how you look at something might be the first step to figuring out what the action should be. Often if you're ready to move and you're ready for action, but you're still looking at it with the same perspective, then your actions will fall on deaf ears. And then you'll be disgruntled because you'll feel like it's time wasted. It's energy wasted. I hear amen out there. So you really have to string these things together. So my question that I'll leave you with is, how do you envision leadership? Is it a duck in the water, calm and cool on the surface, paddling like Helen? Or is it a rabbit in the wind? Can you guys see it?
Oh, yeah.
Until you begin to think about the multiple perspectives of leadership, your passion and your purpose, what really makes, what changes you really want to see because the current status quo really upsets you. Until you examine those things, you won't be able to figure out where you fit in. And once you figure out where you fit in, then you'll know the skills that you need, who you need to tap into, where you need to be, how you need to network. See, the skill part is only a small piece of it. So throughout the course of the day, I am challenging you. As you listen to the various presentations, as you complete your survey if you haven't yet, think to yourself, how am I defining leadership? Am I stepping out of the box and being innovative, even with my own definition? Because those questions that you ask yourself are the questions that are going to yield the answers that change the perspective, that create action, and really get us to where we need to be. And then finally, who doesn't want to be great? Who doesn't want to do something amazing? We all do. But the reality is that if being great, you yourself, if being great is your focus, The leadership ship is gonna come, and it's gonna sail, and you're gonna miss the boat. Because when you really think about those who are great, they didn't set out to become great. Martin Luther King didn't set out to be great. He was just trying to preach. Nelson Mandela would tell you, he didn't set out to be great. He was just trying to stand up for what was right. I'm talking about the really great ones. The Tanyas, the Nicoles, the Aarons, the Jennifers. Oh yeah, you're the really great ones. All they did was set out and they wanted to do something. Do something that was really going to create change and make a difference. But they did it so hard, and they did it so well, and they worked so hard at it, and they cried through some things, and then they pulled some other people in to help them do it, and do it better and better and better. And all of a sudden, what they accomplished was great. And somewhere in the mix of that, guess what? Someone looked at them and said, you got it. There's a greatness in you. You're an awesome leader. So please, take the time to ask yourself the questions and take the time to look at things a little differently. Thank you.